If you're searching for tomorrow's cure, fighting for a breakthrough when all else is broken, or confronting the unthinkable, keep on. Keep on caring. Keep on learning. Keep on practicing, because at MDA National we'll be here, providing the care, protection and expertise so that you can keep on. MDA National.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to Choosing Your Future Medical Career webinar. My name is Dr. Gemma Hogan. I'm a paediatric registrar currently working at King Edward Memorial Hospital, and I'm also the AMA WA Doctors in Training Committee co-chair, and tonight I will be your webinar chair. So before I introduce our speakers and we begin the presentations, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, the traditional owners of the country that we meet on, and their elders past, present and emerging, and the AMA's responsibility to help close the gap. I would like to thank PMC WA, who have partnered with us tonight, and I would like to thank our sponsor, MDA National, who helped to make events like these possible. The format tonight will include presentations from PMC WA, AMA WA, and chemical pathologist Dr. Michael Page. At the end of these presentations, I will invite all panelists back to answer any questions that you may have, but feel free to post them via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You also have the option to upvote a question if you would like this to be answered. The webinar will also be recorded tonight. Well, tonight we'll be discussing the choosing your future medical career, and having not that long ago gone through the process myself, I understand how having the right knowledge helps to make an informed decision. To kick things off for us tonight and to help us make those informed decisions, I would like to welcome Miss Caitlin Overset, who will be the senior member of the Postgraduate Medical Council of WA. She is responsible for the recruitment of medical interns in WA, the key relationship contact for AMA Junior Medical Officer cohort, and the manager of various events for those involved in medical education. So please welcome Caitlin.
Thank you, Gemma. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Just bear with me. Okay. All right, so thank you so much for tuning in tonight to learn a bit more about PMCWA and AMA, and to get a bit more information on some resources available to help you with your career selection. So if you don't know who PMCWA is, we look after you in your junior doctor years. We are the body that is established by the Minister to oversee your intern training and to make sure you meet all the requirements to progress to general registration after your internship. We don't only accredit intern positions though, we do also accredit RMO positions, and we have done for quite some time now. Each position that you rotate through, we accredit. So if you've got a term in general medicine at one of the hospitals, we have actually been in the hospital to ensure that you get enough teaching, supervision and support, and that you are in a safe environment. If there are any concerns you may have about a rotation, you may have about a rotation, you can bring this to our attention through the JMO forum or through your RMO Society president. PMCWA also manage the statewide recruitment for medical interns. This is coordinated centrally, which means you only have to submit one application for WA, and then you preference which hospitals you would like to complete your internship in from 1 to 6. Once applications are closed, your applications are sent through to the hospitals for assessment. RMO applications have a similar process also, where you only submit one application and rank each potential employer. It's much easier than applying to each hospital separately, which was the reality a few years ago. All medical recruitment in Western Australia is conducted in MedJobs WA, and you may or may not be familiar with it. I do know that we've got a few medical students here tonight, so you'll be getting very familiar with this website very soon. You will have one profile that will continue from intern to your subsequent years, which is quite handy. And you can sign up for email alerts to understand when a vacancy may arise or when annual recruitment processes open, which is quite soon for interns. And I think RMOs are not too far behind. The benefit for MedJobs WA also is that your profile continues with you and it keeps record of the documents you have utilised for your applications. For example, if you've got your academic transcript that you've already uploaded for your intern application and you need it for your RMO application in the following year, it'll already be there and you can just attach it. So it's quite helpful in that sense. All correspondence from MedJobs WA is via email. So make sure you have an active email that you check and it's not a student email. Specifically for intern recruitment, you'll see the interns can only be employed by an accredited primary employing health service. And as you can see from this slide, there are currently 6 different primary employing health services interns can apply directly to. So that includes Fiona Stanley Hospital, Joondalup Health Campus, Royal Perth Hospital, Sir Charles Gairdner Hospital, St John of God Midland and WA Country Health Service. So it has expanded quite a bit over the past couple of years when it just used to be Fiona Stanley, Royal Perth and Sir Charles Gairdner. While employed from these primary employing health services, you have the opportunity to rotate to various metro or rural health sites. Some new additions, which we were excited to announce for this year, was Perth Children's Hospital and Osborne Park Hospital for interns to rotate through, which is the first time that that's happened in WA, which is very exciting. And the feedback from these new positions has been quite positive, and we hope to continue these for next year. With WA Country Health Service, you have the opportunity to complete your whole internship at a rural location. The options currently include Albany, Bunbury and Broome, and we are currently accrediting Geraldton Regional Hospital as an option for 2023 interns and hope to have confirmation on that soon if it's going ahead. All of this information is available on the PMCWA website, and especially when intern applications open, you'll be able to see it in the intern application guide. Once you finish your internship, you also have the option to be directly employed by King Edward Memorial Hospital and Perth Children's Hospital. Under the current award, interns will be offered a 3-year offer automatically through MedJobs WA. This will apply to public hospitals as well as Joondalup, and St John of God Midland interns are offered a 2-year contract. This doesn't mean that you're going to be an intern for 3 years. It just means that you have job security for 3 years. And it's something that AMA WA fought very hard for and was quite an achievement when it was put through. After successfully completing your intern requirements, which is generally a year for most interns, you will progress to an RMO. You're not going to be an intern for 3 years. You will be able to swap between sites for your second year if you wish to do so, and you'll be able to do this via an application process, which will be through MedJobs WA. If you want to stay at the same site, you are able to stay at the same site, but you will need to fill out a shortened application process, which is really just ticking a box to say that you'd like to stay at Royal Perth or Charles Gairdner, wherever you might be. If you don't want a 3-year contract, you are able to negotiate this with your medical workforce team at your employing hospital. To understand which hospitals you can work at during your internship and as an RMO, you can also utilise the PMCWA Medical Careers portal to see which hospitals and rotations are accredited for interns and RMOs. The Medical Careers portal was developed by the Postgraduate Medical Council of Western Australia in 2021, and we are working on expanding the content currently. This portal also helps doctors to decide on career paths, what career paths might be more suited for a particular personality, and provide information on what it is like to work in a certain specialty. I will go through the different search functions available in the portal later on this evening. don't forget, if you have any questions during this evening, you can send them through and we can answer them at the end of the session. I'll now pass you back over to Gemma to introduce the next presenter for this evening.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. We are now going to hear from Dr. Michael Page, a chemical pathologist at Western Diagnostic Pathology, AMA WA board member and the previous co-chair of the AMA Doctors in Training Committee. Michael, over to you.
Thanks very much, Gemma, and let me just share my screen. All right, can we see that? Thanks very much. Look, if you know what this first slide is a picture from, feel free to pop it in the chat. Now, thanks very much to AMA WA and PMC WA for putting on this event and for inviting me to talk. This is a very brief presentation, 15 minutes, about training pathways and really a few reflections from my own perspective and the experiences of many people who I know have been through specialty training on some general things to think about when you go to think about what type of specialty you want to do and how you go about getting in. Next slide. So the book that this comes from is called Oh, the Places You'll Go, which is a book by Dr. Seuss, not really written so much for children, but for, well, it's become a sort of classic book that's given as a graduation present, you know, by parents to their kids graduating from high school or university. And it's really really a book about success, failure, and resilience. And it begins with, congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. Don't worry, I'm not going through the whole book. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know. And you are the guy or girl or other who'll decide where to go. So this is what it can feel like when you become aware of the huge range and depth of specialties that are available in medicine. It can feel like the world is really your oyster, because you do have a lot of specialties to choose from. You're exposed to many of them during medical school, and I know most of you tonight are medical students, along with some interns and PGY laters, PGY 2+. But certainly, you know, there's a huge range of specialties, 46 or 48 or something specialties to choose from, as well as other pathways that aren't as well recognised, that don't necessarily fit within a recognised specialty pathway. So there are the big ones that everyone's well aware of: general practice, about 50% of people will end up as general practitioners, surgery and the various subspecialties of surgery, medicine, that is physician training, of which there are lots of branches, you know, cardiology, neurology, endocrinology, and so forth, psychiatry, obstetrics and gynecology, the critical care specialties, which are a bit more exciting. Then there are the smaller ones: pathology, radiology, dermatology, don't have quite such big intakes. And then this third column I've got here is the specialties you may not have thought of. Now, I had originally, I've given this talk a couple of times, and I originally had that column labelled as obscure specialties. Greg Sweetman kindly picked me up on that, pointing out particularly that public health is no longer obscure. It's very much in the spotlight, and obscure is probably a bit of an unkind word to use for these various specialties, which are all important. And of course, there are others as well. So of course, in 15 minutes, I can't tell you much about any one of those specialties or why, or their relative strengths and weaknesses. But what we can talk about is the future for you in terms of how to get onto training and some things that you can think about. So there are some certain common aspects of getting onto pretty much any specialty training program, and experience is the first one that I'll mention, which is experience usually within that specialty. So direct experience within that specialty is important. So even if that's choosing to do an elective as a medical student, all the way through to doing a formal term in that specialty as an intern resident or non-trainee registrar. All of those experiences are very important for putting on your CV and for being able to talk about when you go to do an interview to get into a specialty. And then there are indirect experiences, which are also important, because sometimes direct experience in a specialty is nigh on impossible for some of the specialties where there's no resident term, no intern term available. So you have to find some kind of way to have experiences that you can talk about that are relevant to that specialty when you go to put together your CV and your application letter and do an interview to get into training. Research is a huge one. Research has become a real arms race amongst doctors in training, and really now amongst medical students as well. So doing some kind of research activity, ideally within your specialty of interest, and that can be something fairly simple like an audit. And if you can get that through to presentation in the poster format or oral presentation at a conference, that's great. Publication in a peer-reviewed journal, obviously even better. But, you know, that's it doesn't always work out, and some people are scarred for life by the experience, unfortunately. Outside activities, more relevant in some specialties than others. I think, as I recall, for orthopedic surgery, I think this is a true story. You used to get as many points, if not more, for competing in a sport at state or greater level than you did for completing a PhD. Maybe that's urban legend. Maybe it's still true. And of course, referee reports. Again, ideally referees from within the specialty that you're interested in doing, but of course, that's not always possible. The book continues. You won't lag behind because you'll have the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be best of the best. Wherever you go, you will top all the rest. And the pessimists amongst you will see where this is going, except when you don't, because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say so, but sadly it's true that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You can get all hung up in a prickly perch and your gang will fly on. You'll be left in a lurch. So the next slide is neither an accident nor from any Dr. Seuss book, and is the sort of classical depiction of the clotting cascade, which is a nice, simple, not that simple, you have to memorize it every time you do an exam, but nice linear cascade of events. You've got factor 7 that becomes factor 7a, and then that converts 11 into 11a, and then so on and so forth. Nice and orderly, a bit like our kind of prototypical depiction of the career path of a doctor. So you're a medical student for 5 to 7 years. You become an intern for 1 year, as Caitlin reiterated. And then you'll probably be an RMO in the hospital system for a couple of years, then a registrar for a period of time, and then you'll become a senior doctor, whether that's in general practice, a hospital-based consultant, or other. Nice and orderly, like the clotting cascade, but as with the clotting cascade, where some clever hematologists got together and decided that really this is oversimplified and the clotting cascade is actually a network that you now have to learn. And it looks more like that. And that is analogous to many, maybe the majority of medical careers. So what are the causes of a non-linear medical career, which is entirely acceptable and, as I say, quite normal? So firstly, competition for training positions is a huge one. The reality is that for many of these specialties, there are far fewer places available to train than there are people wanting to train in them. You could have literally 20 good candidates applying for 2 positions and maybe another 100 just sort of having a bit of a go. So you could be up against, depending on the specialty, and some specialties aren't like that, but a few of them are. And so people try year after year to get into certain specialties. So of course, eventually you'll need to change your mind, but you might change your mind for other reasons. Maybe you've been trying to get onto a specialty for a couple of years, or you've been interested in a specialty for a couple of years and you change your mind about it. For whatever reason, maybe you do a term in it, you thought you were interested in it, you do a term in it, and then you realize it's actually not for you. And there are other people who finish specialty training and then go and start a different specialty because, again, they find something that they think might interest them more. You don't pass your specialty exams. Now, of course, with every specialty, you have several attempts available to you to get through your exams, but it can be demoralizing. And I know people who have not passed their first set of specialty exams, maybe in their first or second year of training, and have gone on to do a completely different specialty. So demoralizing was the experience. And I have to say, the people I can think of that have done that have enjoyed their second choice of specialty immensely, and are now specialists and doing a great job. So so there's no criticism there at all. And your life circumstances can change. Every specialty has different demands on life and family, and the specialty that you're interested in now, you may not be training in for another 5 to 10 years, depending where you are and what the specialty is that you're trying to get into. You may think that you're footloose and fancy free now and you can do anything, but you never know. Suddenly, boom, marriage and a baby, or family illness, personal illness, anything can happen unpredictably, and that can cause you to reevaluate which specialty you go into. And again, I know many people to whom this has happened. And it's just a rebalancing. It's not a failure to get into a first choice of specialty. It's a reevaluation of priorities in life. So I want to talk for a few minutes about a backup plan. And this is something that I strongly advocate any medical student or doctor in training who's thinking about the specialty options to at least give serious consideration to. And what I mean by that is having a second or, third, fourth specialty in which you're interested, which if the first option doesn't work out for any of the reasons we've talked about, could be a good fallback option. And there's a few things to think about when considering that. And the first is your backup plan needs to be realistic, needs to be acceptable to you, and you need to do at least something to nurture it, such that if you need to fall back on it in the future, you haven't completely neglected it. Obviously, with the competition of specialties, it's not really possible to simultaneously have a really good crack at two different specialties at the same time, particularly if they're very competitive. But you can at least structure things such that it's there if you need it. So if you don't have a backup plan, and this is common, I see this a bit, people will apply for a specialty, they don't get in, they try again for the same specialty, they don't get in, they try again for the same specialty, they don't get in, and this can go on and on. I know people who've applied for specialties like orthopedics, for example. Sorry to single out orthopedics again, but it's highly competitive. A lot of people want to do it. They'll be working as a service registrar, so as an unaccredited, in other words, non-trainee registrar in the hospital system for, apply in their first year of service registrar work, don't get in, apply again, 5-6 years go by. People who've come into a similar role, 3 years, 4 years later are getting in before this, some of these people who somehow just don't get in. And that's a problem, because the further away you get from remembering how to use a stethoscope or read an ECG, the harder it is to change course. So that can happen. In the olden days, people used to say, well, if I don't get into the specialty I want, then I'll just do GP. Obviously, that is offensive to GPs, and it's also not a really great plan for a number of reasons, because you may not have actually thought about why it is that you might choose GP as a second option, and it might not be something that's suited to you, and you've done nothing to demonstrate that you're interested in GP. And so when you go to interview to get in, and GP is competitive like everything else, you may not even get in. So that's not a very good backup plan. Find something that's acceptable. Find something you find interesting. These arrows are in completely arbitrary positions. And part of the reason for that is the reason that some people will choose a specialty as their first choice differs between people. And so the thing that attracts you to one specialty as a first option you might see in a second specialty and someone else sees it completely differently because their reasons for being attracted to those specialties were different in the first place. Find something realistic. So if you try 4 times to get into ophthalmology and they keep rejecting you, and then you apply to ENT surgery, they're going to reject you, and then you go, oh well, okay, maybe I'll try neurosurge. Have a crack at neurosurge. That seems pretty easy to get into. They're not going to take you either, sorry to say. So you do have to be a bit realistic about what your backup plan is going to be, because at the end of the day, these colleges, they are very needy. These specialty groups that let you into training, they're very needy and emotional, and they want to feel, when you go to interview with them, they want to feel like you've only ever had eyes for their specialty. And that actually makes it very difficult if you don't get into your first choice of specialty, to then go to another, college or another specialty group and say, well, I only ever wanted your specialty, actually, because they might just smell a rat there. So yes, nurture your backup plan, make it realistic. These are just examples of what could be more realistic. For example, if you've been trying to get into neurosurgery and you change your mind or you can't get in, anesthetics takes a lot more trainees than neurosurgery. Not suggesting that anesthetics is easy to get into, it's not, but they take more trainees and you might have a better chance, for example. So just ponder, how do I arrange my research, rotations, and other kind of CV building activities around both options? Because at the end of the day, although I sort of jest about the specialties being very needy, at the end of the day, most of them do want people who are well-rounded. So they do want people who've experienced different specialties, possibly relevant specialties, but that are not necessarily the same specialty. So if you can try to kind of arrange what you're doing around both of your options, then that can work well. So for example, I remember a guy I knew who wanted to be a surgeon, but he thought if he couldn't get into surgery, he might apply to radiology. The research project that he picked up, or an audit project, basically involved imaging guided biopsies for, I can't remember, liver cancer or something like that. So he's sort of combining two things, sort of upper GI surgery with radiology in his audit/research, such that he could kind of spin it both ways if he needed to try to apply for more than one specialty. Because research is a big time commitment. It's not like you can just do one research project, finish it off, and then kind of pivot to a different specialty entirely. It's very time consuming, and that's not necessarily realistic. So just some final thoughts, because I don't want it to be entirely depressing, this talk. Medical specialty training, yes, it is highly competitive, and some specialties more so than others. So you do need to do some planning. There's some good PMCWA resources, but I haven't sort of gone into that, on the PMCWA website, about sort of specialty numbers, trainee numbers, and that sort of thing, which can give you a little bit of an idea. But really you need to talk to people in specialties about how hard it is to get in, and what you need to do to get into each different specialty, because they're all a bit different. I've really just been giving you some general principles. But don't let FOMO rule your life. It's not a race. I know that's a bit of an infamous statement by someone who rhymes with FOMO, incidentally, but it's true. You've got plenty of time ahead of you. It is good to do different specialties as you're training. By which I mean, pick up different terms as an intern resident in different areas, because it will make you a more well-rounded doctor. And you've got plenty of time. You've got long careers ahead of you, and so don't think that you need to absolutely panic about this stuff. You don't. Ultimately, almost everyone I know has found their way into a specialty that they like. So will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That was a really insightful and I think important talk for everyone to hear. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Greg Sweetman, who is the current chair of the Postgraduate Medical Council of Western Australia, or PMCWA as we often know it, and who has a long interest in medical education with a master's in clinical education. Greg has been involved in teaching at both an undergraduate and postgraduate level for more than 25 years, and he was the inaugural Director of Medical Education at Fiona Stanley Hospital. So welcome, Greg.
Thanks very much, Gemma. Thanks for the invitation. And it's always a tough gig following Michael, always a tough gig. So rule, if you're ever doing one of these presentations, don't follow Michael. Michael's talk resonated with me greatly because I consider my career, and gee, there were a few twists and turns in it. But my remit today is to talk about wellness as medical practitioners. And I might just get my first slide up. Some of you will have already invested long periods of time in your life towards getting into medicine and where you are in the message in your actual journey through medicine. And remember, you're here for the long haul. So it's really quite important that you plan for your wellness through the long haul. And I suppose with the benefit of having seen a number of practitioners over the years, really, really quite important, I think, to actually plan that with as much care as you plan your choice of career, because I'm currently in my 40th year of practice, and stuff will happen through your life. So you need to have a plan for how you're actually going to manage your life going forward. So I might just bring up my next slide, because there is an absolute wealth of places where you can actually go to actually talk with people around planning how you will remain well during your career in medicine. And, you know, for those of you who are junior doctors, you know that your JMO wellbeing groups link into your JMO welfare groups. And it's really quite important that you make use of those to explore what's actually happening in your life. And there is a number of other options you can use as well. There are your own medical education unit. Make sure you touch base with people when you're in the hospital. And remember, there are things that will happen in your life. Loved ones will get sick. Loved ones will have things happen to them, and you might need to take some time off. You might even need to get yourself in a slightly better place. Really quite important that you make sure that those people you're working with and can support you are actually aware of that. There's some general advice in the PMCWA Wellbeing Guide, and there are some national service like Doctors for Doctors who actually provide services as well. For those of you with a strong religious faith, don't forget that the pastoral services in the organisations you work for are often valuable resources as well, and often not utilised to the full extent. For those of you who find yourself in a sticky patch, there's also Doctors Health Advisory Service, which is non-judgmental, absolutely confidential. And if on my reflection is that people don't actually seek these things out, or seek them out late, there's the greatest problem sometimes. So I might move to my next slide, because Caitlin only let me have 2 slides because she thought I'd talk too long. What I can say is that well doctors deliver the best care. So the community, your families, loved ones have invested a huge amount of time in getting you to where you are. And the important thing for the long haul is to make sure that you remain well. Because we know that well doctors deliver the best care to patients. Set yourself up for your career. Make sure that you actually aren't your own doctor. Have your own doctor who you feel comfortable with. Find your doctor when you're well. Always a bad choice to try and find your doctor when you're not well. Find your own doctor. Use them as a mirror. Don't be your own doctor. I've spoken about talking to medical education directors of medical education and the people who are involved in your programs in your hospitals. And I'm going to leave you with an image as my final comment. I want you to imagine that you're actually in a tent for your career. The more ropes you put on your tent will actually sustain you. So you actually need to make sure that you maintain your relationship with family, your main relationships with your doctor, your mentors, important people in your life, so that when you do encounter those tough patches, you'll be quite resilient, because you've got lots and lots. If there's a storm coming, you've got lots of ropes on your tent. Thanks very much for your attendance this evening, and I'll be tuning in and listening for the rest of the event. So thanks very much for the invitation, Gemma.
All good. Thanks, Greg. So now I would like to welcome back Caitlin to talk about PMCWA resources that are available to you. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks, Gemma. Sorry, just stopping sharing Greg's slides there. And I'm just going to share my screen now. Just bear with me. Should be coming up soon. Okay, so thanks, Greg. Wellbeing is really an important topic, and I would definitely recommend looking into some of the suggestions Greg has just spoken about. I'm going to go through some of the PMCWA resources that are available to you, which can all be found on the PMCWA website. We are undergoing a bit of a revamp with our website, so I envision the website might look a little bit different in a couple of months, but this is what it currently looks like and will look like for a little while. Our website is a great place to go to find out information on important dates and any events that we are running. The homepage is updated frequently to showcase the latest news. You can see that we've got the live careers webinar just here, which you are all currently watching this evening, and along with the GP session that's going to be on Monday if you're interested in attending. Before I go into specific resources, I'm just going to highlight a couple of tabs for you. So we've got the intern tab, and under intern recruitment, this is where you're going to find all the specific information about intern recruitment, which will include the opening dates, closing dates, and we'll also have the intern application link, the intern application guide, hospital resources, and the advert when the applications actually go live. So that will be quite useful to some of the medical students that are dialed in for this evening. I'm also going to go through just to highlight the support and wellbeing tab for you. So just going on from Greg's talk, again, really important topic, wellbeing. You can find some information on here. A lot of the organisations Greg spoke about in his talk can be found here if you're looking for the links. There's also information about contacts at each of your hospitals as well, and the wellbeing initiatives that are on offer. I'm also going to show you the JMO forum. Some of you might know what the JMO forum is already, but those of you who don't, it is open to any junior doctor in WA to attend. It's a safe place to chat about what is going on at your health site, the good and not so good, and also some things happening on a national level. If you have a particular interest in leadership, you can also nominate for committee roles. However, for 2022, they've already been elected, but you can definitely attend as a member from now on, and even put your hand up for a JMO co-chair position for next year. So if you are interested, feel free to give PMCWA an email. I'm going to move on to the different resources that are available for you, which are found under the Publications and Resources tab under JMO Resources. So we've got 3 different documents here, which are probably PMCWA's main documents, and they're all developed and updated each year through the Junior Medical Officer Forum. So they're made by junior doctors for junior doctors, so very relevant information in each of them. I'll just briefly go through them. So the first one we've got is the JMO Professional Development Leave Guide. Okay, so this is one of our more recent documents, which Gemma, who was hosting this evening, was involved in its initial development. So thank you, Gemma. This guide, it's a little bit long, it's a bit lengthy, but that's because it's full of a lot of information of the different specialties and the different PD that's available throughout the year for different specialties. It's organised by specialty. So you'll see there in the contents page, we've got different specialties listed. There's also some tips for how to successfully secure your PDL, which is pretty good to know because there's some things that you might not be aware of that are hidden in here. And also it provides a bit of a guide to what observerships are and if it's something that might be useful to you. I'm just going to use, where is it? There we go, emergency medicine as a bit of an example here because it's close to the top. You can see that there are some suggested certificate and diploma programs, which might be of interest to you if you have a specific interest in emergency medicine. And then if we scroll down, you can see that there's some emergency medicine specific courses. So pretty self-explanatory. You've got the title of the course, the organisation it's offered through, and a brief overview of the course, so to see if it's something you might be interested in. It also provides a location, any fees, the website where you can get further information, and there's also a bit of a spiel as to who it might be suitable for, so you can see if it's something you might be interested in. As you can see, it's quite an extensive document, and it will be useful to best prepare yourself for any colleges that you're interested in. I'm going to get out of that one now. Okay, so next one is the Wellbeing Guide, which I'm just going to touch on again as well, because I know Greg's already spoken a bit about wellbeing. But this, again, it's updated annually by our JMO Forum Wellbeing representatives. This guide is very useful to understand the different support resources that are available to you. And it also continues on for some additional tips. So some social media accounts that you may wish to follow, some apps that you might want to download, podcasts, and some books as well. I'm also going to scroll down to the end and just show you they've got some site-specific information as well. So if you're not sure who to contact at your site, if you're struggling, then you can go here and it'll have the updated list of who you can best go to. You really are very lucky. Each hospital have amazing staff in many areas, including medical education and wellbeing, who have a passion for wellbeing and they will help you or put you in contact with somebody who can help you. And there's another guide that I'd like to go through, the final one, I promise, before I go into something else. So it's the JMO Survival Guide. So again, updated annually through the JMO Forum. This is probably our guide that's been going around for the longest, so you may have heard about the JMO Survival Guide. It is, again, a lengthy document. It does get added on year after year, but essentially it provides information to introduce you to the world of being a doctor. It describes the role of PMCWA and our different committees, as well as where you need to go if you do have a problem. It also highlights what your role as a junior doctor is, important information for working after hours, tips for handover, the list goes on. It's a really beneficial document to help you as a junior doctor. Now you know where it lives. I'll leave it with you to explore further. I'm not going to talk about that one anymore. I am going to switch now to another tab and show you the PMCWA Medical Careers portal, which I did mention earlier on this evening. So as mentioned, this was a project developed through PMCWA last year, and we continue to add to the content. I'll first show you how this can be used to understand which hospital interns are accredited for interns. So this portal can be used in a couple of different ways. So you can see here that there's two options. We have My Future Career and My Training Pathway. I'm going to use the My Training Pathway option here. So let's say I'm a current medical student and I'm interested in doing a pediatrics term next year. I'll click Search Training, and because I'm interested in a certain term, I'm going to click Pre-Vocational Term Opportunities. As I said, I've got an interest in pediatrics, so I'm going to type in pediatrics. Oh, there we go. Filters through the list, and I'm going to click Search. So here I am now showing all of the health sites that are accredited for a specific pediatric rotation. But we need to remember, I'm going to be an intern next year, so I can only rotate to hospital terms that are accredited for interns. So looking through this list that I've just got, I can see now that I can complete a pediatric term as an intern at Armidale, Perth Children's Hospital, and St John of God Midland. So just a good visual way of seeing where you can actually do certain terms as an intern or a resident. So another way I can use this search function with My Training Pathway. So on the right hand side here, I'm going to click Search Training. instead of pre-vocational term opportunities, I'm going to go to pre-vocational site opportunities. So let's say my partner was just offered an RMO contract at Broome, and I'd like to move there with them. And I'd just like to see what rotations are available to me if I choose to work at Broome as well. I'm going to just select Broome from the list of different health sites, click search, and here I am provided with a list of all the different rotations that are available to me and are accredited at Broome Regional Hospital. So I can see that they've got quite a few intern positions there, and yeah, all of the ones listed there are also suitable for a resident. So now going back here, I'm going to clear my search, and I'm just going to talk through some ways that you can use the My Future Career function as well. So I'm going to search career, and I'm going to go to career options. So let's say I don't really know what I want to specialize in, but I do know that I want work that's going to provide me some part-time work opportunities. I want my focus of my work to be continuity of care, and I'm also really interested in direct patient contact. So I'm going to press that one as well. And individual style, I love educating others, and I really thrive in a fast-paced decision-making environment. So based on those decisions there, I'm going to press search and see what particular specialties or careers might be of interest to me based on the interests that I just put in. So as you can see, it's filtered down to a list of different specialties that I might be interested to look into. Let's just say I decide to choose general medicine. I'm interested to know a little bit more about general medicine based on the options that I've input. From here, it's now going to open up a page which is going to tell me everything I need to know about the work as working in general medicine. So up here we have a bit of a profile of the amount of specialists in this field, the median age, average weekly work hours. So just a few things. This is also shown on every career page that we have managed to get some data for. We've also got a couple of tabs, which we developed last year with Dr. Ash Coxon, who you may have heard of. She is a career counsellor, and this is just a particular interest of her. So we're very lucky to work with her on this. So we get a bit more information here of what the actual work is like, is it for me, what the training's like, and career prospects. So if I just go back to the work here and I scroll down to the bottom, I can see we've got some videos here. So these are some videos that were recorded from the Careers Expo last year, and it's just got a short snippet where it's actually answered some good information about what it's like to work in general medicine. Okay, I've got two more examples to show you. I won't take too much more of your time, but they're good to know. That's a good tool, this one. So I'm just going to clear the search again. I'm going to go back to My Future Careers. And let's say I want to look at the different training options. So I'm going to click search on training options. And I want to see what's going to suit me. So let's say I want to do training that's only going to take 4 years or less, and will also allow further subspecialisation. And you know what? I'm going to put another one in there. I want to do some rural placements as well. Just going to click search. I now have a list of different specialties, again, with the different training options that I was interested in. And let's say now I choose dermatology. It's the first one on the list. Again, as you saw before, it has the profile that we were talking about before, and information about the actual work. Is it for me, the training, and some videos as well with some useful information of what it's actually like to work as a dermatologist. I've just got one more that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to clear my search again, go to My Future Career, search careers. This time, I know what I want to be. So I'm going to go into career search and fully look at the whole list of specialties that's available. So I know, well, let's see, actually, you can start searching and it will narrow down some options. I'm going to start writing in general practice. Let's say I really want to, that's my career path. I know that's what I want to be. I want to be a GP. So I'm going to start typing it in here. And you see, as I type, it starts to filter down the list. So I'm going to click general practice here, view career, and there we go. Go straight into that profile page and understanding about the work as a GP. So as mentioned before, this resource is our work in progress, and we are going to continually add to it over the years. And we always encourage feedback or suggestions. So if you have any, please email PMCWA for us to consider it. I hope you'll find this as a useful resource for those medical students and junior doctors who are looking into different career options. And I hope it's useful for you. I'll hand you back over to Gemma now for the next part of the meeting.
Thank you, Caitlin, for that great talk and showing us how to navigate the PMCWA website. It's always a useful skill. And also, I guess, thank you for the mention around the professional development guide. It was a lot of work to put together, but I do hope it's a useful resource for all those looking at potential opportunities now. So I'd just like to remind everyone as well to put any questions that you may have into the chat, and we will do our best to answer them at the end. I'll now also introduce Dr. Benny Ng, who is the Chief Executive Officer or CEO of the AMA WA, and he's a dual fellow of RAC GP and RACMA, and has worked as both a general practitioner and a medical administrator in medical policy and health management. He's currently in charge of the enormous responsibility leading the AMA into the future. So please take it away, Benny.
Thank you, Gemma. Hi, everybody. And in terms of my background, I definitely had a non-linear path, like what Michael said. General practice first, but very happy to have moved to medical administration, which, as he said, is obscure, rare, but even more rare and obscure, but very important is my current role that I've got as the CEO of the Australian Medical Association, Western Australia. AMAWA is the peak medical body with over 5,000 members right here in WA. We're the only independent body that will represent the medical doctors and students here. For those students who may have not heard of AMA before, we're in fact the body that support the national AMSA, the Medical Students Association. We also bring together the different medical students peak body. So we've got the three universities together to talk about student policy and issues. And for those who are already working, we have strong networks around for not just internally in Doctors in Training Committee, but also in RMO societies. So I just want to briefly outline to you what AMA does and why do you want to actually join AMA. I'll keep this really brief, but essentially we have two functions. The body represents you collectively, and we also support you and advocate for you individually. So first of all, collectively, we have a very strong public health functions for both doctors and patients. In terms of policies, we're the body that advocate for the best policies so that you can actually work the best that you could to treat patients, whether it's COVID or just normal in non-COVID situation in hospitals and in private practices. But more importantly, we have a core function of negotiating your pay and conditions, especially at the public hospital. What does that mean? It means that I, in fact, have the onerous task of negotiating for how much you actually get paid and how much you get leave when you're working in a WA health system. And we are progressing our negotiation with the current government on the new agreement, and hopefully they'll be settled very soon. This is important because your welfare is ours, and I think having well looked after doctors means that you don't have to worry and you can actually discharge your duties the best you could. But other than paying conditions, we look after your safety, we look after your job security, and also the work culture. At the individual level, we always think that no news is good news, but things do go wrong. And unfortunately, we often see timesheets, contracts, and pay slips kind of slip through the crack. And what we do is we can provide advice and checks for members to see whether they are correct or not, and so that we can be independently looking at it and give you advice and correct anything that is that's not actually, for example, if you're not being paid properly or being given enough leave. We don't just advocate for government, we also advocate for other bodies. So that's why we're truly independent. So for example, if there are issues with AHPRA registration, or even as recently in the last 6 months, unfortunately, there were quite a lot of hiccups with exams done by the colleges. With technology, the glitches that happens in the middle of exams often cause more stress, and we write directly and talk directly to the respective college and also the governing body that manage their accreditation, like the Australian Medical Council. So AMA plays a one-stop shop role in supporting the doctors, and that's why we actually brought this particular webinar to you. We know how important PMC WA is. You guys need to know what they do, and what Caitlin has shown tonight. We know that it is extremely resourceful, and I encourage you to check them out. We also produce an intern guide that complements the JMO guide that informs you about the work environment, the hospital environment when you become an intern. We also have an independent hospital health check that the junior doctors fill in about how they're travelling in hospital. They get published in the middle of the year. That helps you to decide which hospital you may like to choose one over another for different factors. And my last plug tonight is when you have time to put in a diary, is that it's in our interest that you actually pass your exams. For the last couple of years, we've been supporting a exam workshop that's run by a group called MedVault, and we'll be hosting it again on the 22nd and 23rd of July. That's a Friday and a Saturday at Crown Perth. You get a lot more information about this workshop that is run by two experienced and young, energetic A&E doctors, and I encourage you to register and attend. But otherwise, I know that when you actually get to the other end and finish your exams, you need a lot more than employment advice. AMA is also there to support you on anything from mortgage broking, insurance, travel otherwise, as well as medical products. So we support you in RATs, or if you actually have any mask issues. I think some of you may be already getting some of the fit testing as we partner with the university. So it's a bit of an overview about what we do, and I certainly encourage you to join, whether you're a student, which you can, but if you're not, join us as soon as you can, so that we can actually provide support for you. Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks, Benny. I'd now like to invite all the panellists from this evening and Maurice Bentley, who is the manager of PMC WA, to join me online by turning on your cameras and microphones and help answer some of the questions that have come through tonight. I believe so far we only have one, which I think Maurice has answered in the chat. So I might let you read the question and answer, Maurice, for everyone else at home.
Sure. How do I get, somebody asked if there's an estimate, a rough estimate of the total number of students graduating in 2022 and the number of placements for 2023. The number is always not quite accurate of what we're expecting at this time of the year and what we actually get graduating at the end of the year. But we have about 400 internships in WA, which is slightly more than the expected graduates from the 3 medical schools that we've got at the moment. We've increased, for 2022, we increased 60 positions, and we'll be increasing them by 10 for the next 3 or 4 years as Curtin students keep graduating. And those Curtin places weren't just for Curtin students. We created 10 more, and they were just put into the mix for every student to be eligible to apply for.
Great, thank you. I think there's another question that's come through as well. There was mention of a part-time internship. What would this actually look like? I might hand this over to Caitlin, or otherwise anyone else who thinks they can answer it well.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a go, and Maurice, feel free to jump in if there's anything I've missed. So yes, we have definitely had part-time interns over the past couple of years. I know there's some sites that really try and work to get them. So if you do want to do it, you can put it in your cover letter, and the medical workforce teams will work hard in making that work. I think the preferred way of doing it for the medical workforce teams is usually if someone wants to go part-time, they will go 0.5 FTE, so work half-time. It's best to do a jobs share arrangement. So the two of you will essentially make one person. If you know of somebody in your medical school who is interested in doing part-time, I'd recommend talking to them. And you can mention each other in your cover letters and apply to the same hospital site, and maybe even preference the same sites together, just to help medical workforce make that decision and make it a bit easier when they're doing plannings. So yeah, for the year, because I believe what they currently do is you'll be on the same term together and essentially make up one whole person between the two of you working between the shifts.
Great, thank you. The next question, I think, again, might be a PMC WA one, so I might direct this towards you, Maurice, is can we please have the new 2-year internship explained, please?
Okay, Greg can probably help me out with this.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to take that one if you like. First of all, it's a misnomer. There is no such thing as a 2-year internship. So I think that's the first comment I would make. And I spend most of my working day actually explaining to people that it is a 2-year capability framework. The internship is still 1 year. In other words, you gain general registration after completion of 1 year of supervised practice. So whoever asked the question, if you could aid my life by saying there is no such thing as a 2-year internship framework. It's a pre-vocational 2-year framework, but internship is still 1 year. So 47 weeks of completed, 48 weeks, isn't it? 10 weeks of general medicine, 10 weeks of general surgery, and 8 weeks of emergency medicine as core terms. And again, the whole issue around core terms and non-core terms will change with the framework, and a total of 47 weeks of completed practice. So I hope that one's helpful.
Thanks, Greg. The next question is, you mentioned the 3-year contract for Australian and PR graduates. Would this also apply for international students?
I'm happy to answer that one. If the contracts can't exceed the visa status, so if you've got a 2-year visa, the contract will be a 2-year visa. We can't offer, 2-year contract. We can't offer a 3-year contract for somebody who's only entitled to stay in the country for 2 years. So if there's permanent residency, obviously 3 years, and that's some of the international students have become Australian or permanent residents during the time of study, they can, and otherwise a contract that doesn't exceed their visa.
thank you. The next question might be along similar lines to the previous, but how would the currently proposed 2-year internship impact the 3-year contract? Is there a possibility of swapping sites at year 2 and the potential terms available for internship following 2023?
I'm happy to pick that one up. So just to reiterate, the internship is 1 year. Usually you complete your internship with your primary employing hospital. Otherwise, you're asking someone else to sign off your internship based on a non-complete year. So just to reiterate that point, your internship and your application for general registration usually is after 12 months of satisfactory progress with your primary employing hospital. The application's made to the medical board for your general registration. And I think a lot of practitioners actually discover that there is mobility at that stage if they want to change employers or states even. And remember that something like 40% of our graduates are mobile these days. They actually change across borders.
I'll just add the framework is supported, or will be supported with an e-portfolio where all your assessments are done. And if you finish at Charlie's and you want to go to Royal Perth for your 2nd year, the information follows you there, so you can continue your training. And it's national, so if you want to go to Sydney for your 2nd year, you can pick up.
Can do that. The next question might be potentially for Benny, or I guess an AMA representative. So the question is, has there been any recent changes in parental leave, paternal and maternal, especially with the changes coming up in general practice or GP training?
Gemma, the short answer is no. There's obviously changes in terms of GP training that's coming down the line where the colleges will take over from next year, and we are at AMA monitoring that transition very carefully, and we have a webinar on that next week, specifically about GP and rural practice for those who are interested. But in terms of access to maternal or paternal leave, it depends on who your employer is. So if you're actually in a hospital, then you are under for example, in a state system, you have access under the state rules. But unfortunately, if you start, because you can have some hospital terms, GP training, and some community practice and private practice term. If you're in the private practice side of things, you're governed by the National Minimum Terms and Conditions document, which does not actually provide, there's no provision of specific paid maternity leave by the practice, but you may be eligible for other paid parental leave arrangement from the government, in short.
Great, thanks, Benny. The next question is, can we specify which hospital sites we would like to work at within a health service, i.e. or e.g. just at Joondalup rather than at Hollywood? Caitlin, I might hand that over to you.
Thanks, Gemma. So in the MedJobs application, if you want to work at a rural health site, you can say that you would like to, but if you want to rotate to another metro hospital from that particular PES, you can't do that at the actual application. That's something that you do usually September, October each year. So after you've got your contract and everything, you'll be sent a whole list of different term rotations that you can do. And each of them will have, some might just have Joondalup, some might have Joondalup and Hollywood, and I think they've got a rural site as well. So you just rank what type of terms you want from 1 to whatever it might be. I'm pretty sure Fiona Stanley has 1 to 120. So you just need to rank, and it just depends what medical workforce can do. They do try and get, your top 5 or your top 10, but it just depends on the popularity of that particular term.
Yeah. Great, thank you. The next question, again, might be for PMC WA. How does one become a service registrar? Is it if you don't get into the training to be a registrar, you can just apply to be a service registrar? I mean, Maurice, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, or one of the doctors might be able to do that, usually after PGY, intern at PGY 1, PGY 2, 3, RMO, once you've got some seniority in the hospital, and if you're not in a training program, Office of Service Registrar positions come up, and you can apply for those either in the medical stream or in a surgical stream.
Yeah, I think you can essentially apply from PGY 2.
Yeah.
I was going to qualify that by saying when should you become a registrar, and I think the short answer to that is when it feels right. I don't think you should be talked into being a registrar. Do it when it feels right. But again, the advertisements appear in the WA health system for service registrars. I think service registrar is a much nicer term than unaccredited, because unaccredited sort of sounds like you're not actually a proper doctor. I think service registrar is actually a nicer term. Unaccredited is a phrase that's used on the East Coast a lot, but I think service is probably a kinder, that's what you are. You're providing service to a population of people.
Sorry, it's not directly relevant, Greg, but service has also got the problem that it implies that there's no training element for that registrar when they should also be receiving training.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
ongoing. So there's no perfect word.
There's ongoing issues around that, isn't it? Some units actually treat all their registrars as teach them all, but some don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, the terminology, as you said, Greg, varies from state to state, and also in some other states you basically have to step up to a registrar from about PGY 3 or 4 onwards. So I guess WA is unique in that sense, and that you step up when you feel ready, which is good. All right, next, I think might make this the last question, is will the list of rotation options for hospitals be released prior to applications?
I'm happy to take this one, Gemma.
Great.
So you'll be able to see which hospitals can rotate you to where in the application guide, and it was also on the slide that I showed earlier. But in terms of what rotations are on offer, I believe, yes, it should be available at the online site-specific information sessions that they're going to be offering, which I believe within the first 2 weeks of May. It may not be the current one, as in it might be from last year. It might not be for the upcoming year because things do change, but it should be quite similar, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Great. Okay. I think that's all the questions that we probably have time for tonight. Once again, I would just like to thank all of our presenters and our sponsor, MDA National. I'd also like to thank all of you tonight for attending online on Zoom. At the conclusion of this session, we will email through some contact details. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out. We would also like to take this moment to invite you to a few of the upcoming events, both from an AMA and PMC point of view. So next Monday, the 11th of April at 6 o'clock, AMA and PMC will be hosting a webinar titled What It's Really Like to Be a GP. This will be a great opportunity to hear from practitioners, both metro and rural, who will be able to provide some valuable insights into what it's involved as a general practitioner. There will also be some important recruitment dates coming up. So intern applications open on the 9th of May and close a month later on the 9th of June. There will be various medical student information evenings, as Caitlin mentioned, which will be hosted virtually. These run through the first 2 weeks of intern applications opening, so in May, and they can be found on the PMCWA website, RMO, and on the slide in front of me as well. RMO applications importantly open on the 20th of May and close on the 21st of June. PMCWA is also hosting some careers counselling sessions with Dr. Ash Coxton, and these will be held on Wednesday, the 18th of May, for those who are not sure what you'd like to specialise in. And on Tuesday, the 26th of May, there'll be a session for those who are more sure, I guess, around what specialty you'd like to pursue at this stage. So PMCWA will be the point of contact if you'd like further information on that. For those of you in your final years of medical school, MedVault is also coming up. So MedVault is the ultimate 2-day preparation course for those getting ready for your end of year exams. And finally, you're also invited to MedCon 22, which is an intercollege medical conference run by AMA that brings doctors from every specialty together and is culminating in a night of celebration and dance at MedBall, which should be a pretty great event. So MedVault, MedCon and MedBall will all be held over the 22nd to 23rd of July, and all the details will be sent to you following this presentation. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up and just thank everyone again for coming tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week.